obviously had a long week, and one I think that was productive in the sense that the most important thing this team has got to learn, and they took steps towards that this week, and I think even today, especially coming back in the second half, is just the responsibility that they have to have for one another. And there's no blueprint for it. I mean, it's not like you just insert it. And like I said to our team the other day, when you play the way we played against Kansas, and it's like a game in the Elite Eight, right? And you win it, and it feels great. And we play the way we did the other night, it's like losing to a first-round opponent. And they earned the victory, and we didn't. And each game counts for something, just like the learning experience counts, just like every game's learning experience counts. But the most important thing that you've got to have daily is the edge, irregardless of how you feel, irregardless of where you stand, irregardless of where you're at, irregardless of who you play, irregardless of what you think. You have to have an edge. And before you can get that, it's not a coach-driven thing. It's a peer-driven thing. It's a person-to-person, individual determination type of thing, and that's what we've really tried to spend even more time on, helping them to understand that. And we took some steps towards that today, especially without James. And I like the way that we figured out that we need to attack pressure, that we need to simplify it, that we can play through it, that we just need to keep it simple. And in our case, we weren't playing through the middle enough at the beginning. We were trying to make some plays that weren't there. We weren't getting enough random movement. So we needed to set up just a little bit more structured movement in the second half because, again, it's responsibility. You know, we've had Yogi Ferrell back there breaking the pressure and guys being the recipient of those passes, or we've had Troy Williams breaking the pressure. I mean, everybody's got a new responsibility, not new to basketball. I mean, they've all played basketball, but new responsibilities on the team. And so we have to just continue to grow through that, and I think that we will. But we got better this week. We got better today. We've got a lot of basketball coming up over the next week, obviously, with Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday. And we've just got to stay on the improvement train every day, mentally and physically, and just continue to work to get better. But we got some good play, not only from our starters today, but from our bench. And I told the team, again, this is one thing that I've always tried to recruit to ever since I read it and try to really understand. Pete Carrill, the great coach at Princeton, said many things in his smart take from the strong. But the one thing he said about passing is passing takes the tension out of the game. And I told the team before the game, I said, that's half true. It takes the tension and it makes the offense easier for you. It brings a lot of tension to the opponent. And what we want to do is make sure that we continue to make those simple plays. There's times we've understood that well. There's times we haven't. And that's all part of the process of this team getting better. Same thing, we could say the same thing about rebounding. We could say the same thing about shooting. We could say the same thing about defense. So they've got a great attitude. They're working really, really hard. And we knew we were going to see some really good pressure today. We had a lot of respect for Andre's pressure with that team. It wasn't about their record. It was about their athleticism and the pressure that they can bring to the table. They did. We handled it. We got better. And now we'll get ourselves ready to play Wednesday night.
You kind of talk about growing that responsibility for each other. I guess it's sort of a strange question to ask, but is it almost like they're too good of friends, or just that almost like it's coming from a good place, I guess, that they don't want to hold each other accountable?
Oh yeah, that's common. Yeah, it's common. It's not the first team that's been through that. I mean, last year's team went through it. Every team goes through it to a point because it's very, very hard. There's two parts. It's very hard to take responsibility for others and be demanding of them without it seeming critical, because it will get critical. Then it gets frustrating, and people get frustrated, and you don't want that, right? You don't want it to get to that point. But it's also the thing that's so different for this team. Even with last year's team, guys had done that. Yogi had been having the ball in pressure situations since his freshman year here. Troy Williams started a lot of games as a freshman. Max had done some really good things at Michigan. Nick was 23 years of age. Colin had been through it. So, there's so many guys that could handle the responsibility, so guys could just play. Well, now you got to play and have responsibility. And I think the friendships play into that, I've got to continue to make sure that we're not only competing in practice, but we're competing against one another even more, and not just time and score situations or doing this drill or that drill, but really getting real competition. But again, I think we learned a lot from that in the other night, is that, and they earned it, right? I mean, they staggered us to begin with, and we responded, but we never staggered them, right? I mean, we took the punch, but we never landed a punch that put us over the edge, and we made mistakes, and we didn't realize it at the time that James wasn't all the way healthy later on in that game, and we played that game with OG really not. I don't think any of us understood how sick he was, because he didn't even practice again until part of the time on Friday. So he definitely didn't feel good. So, I mean, that's not an excuse. Those are just parts of it. But bottom line is we didn't have the right edge. And you have to understand that you're not only responsible for your own edge as a player, but when you're really going to be good, you got to take responsibility for the other guys too. And that's part of the process we're learning.
What can you tell us about James, and do you expect him to play Wednesday?
It's too early. It's too early to put an expectation or prediction on that. He's better every day, though he hasn't practiced. So, I mean, I don't, it's not like it's anything that anybody's looking at and say there's surgery involved here or anything like that. I mean, he took a shot in that game, and we've just got to overcome it. So his work has been great. This afternoon, I go run, and I come through the weight room at the end before I go home to change, and there he is in the weight room doing his leg exercises. I mean, he's very, very diligent on getting himself ready. But he's been through a lot. Been through a lot before he even got here, and so we just got to make sure that we're patient with him and help him get through that part of it, and he'll know his body. You know, and he's certainly got great support here, and he'll get that, and we'll just see how the next few days go.
Just real quickly follow up. He went through warm-ups and things. I mean, does he still have some mobility and some things
Yeah.
he can do?
Oh yeah, yeah. This is not a situation where where we don't expect him back. It's not like that at all. But we just gotta work through it.
What made you decide to put Zach in the start line today? What do you think he wants to do? It seems like he does a lot of nice things today.
Well, he had a plus 15 in plus minus the other night, and I think I was proven right because he had a plus 28 today. So this one reason I started in the first exhibition game was a lot of different reasons. It wasn't as a token appearance. It was to get his mind around the fact that we think you're pretty good. And when Colin Hartman went down, a lot of things went through my mind, right? But the biggest basketball issue that went through my mind is that we've got to get Zach McRoberts to the point where he feels very confident and comfortable on this team. And he's getting there. It was his first basket tonight, right? Yeah, I'm proud of him. I mean, he's stepping up there. I mean, he was as competitive as anybody we had on Tuesday night. And we've seen that in practice, and now we've seen it even more in practice. So even though we didn't win the other night, him coming out of there feeling like he belonged, and they go through it too. It's not just because I say you belong, or it's not just because you say they belong, or it's not just because they got a scholarship or don't have a scholarship. They've got to feel it, right? And I think he's feeling more and more like, you know, I can really help this team. So I look at him as a very valuable player. Does that mean he's going to start every night? I don't know what that means. I just know that he's very valuable to us, and I think he's starting to see that.
Is there an adjustment for OG as he gets more volume of shots this year? He's got to go through, especially when he plays against some of these.
Most important thing for OG is just to continue to be on the path that he's on, because he's the same worker. You know, we don't. Here's a kid that a week ago was coming in at 7:30 in the morning on game day, shooting, doing the walkthrough, and then coming out here early before the game. Vic was like that. Like sometimes you just got, it's too much. You know, it's too much volume. And they want it so bad that sometimes you've just got to make sure that you keep reminding them that process word gets used so much, but it's so true, right? There's a process to this. And we just need to let him play. And that's what he did today. And he played, I thought he really worked through it because he was winded, and there's no question that he lost some of his conditioning and things like that from being sick, and I thought he played. He really was on the attack a lot today. And I don't ever sit down and say, well, he's got to make these amount of shots, take these amount of shots, get these amount of rebounds. We just coach him constantly to be better, right? To be better defensively, to be better with the ball, without the ball, be better with his spacing, better with his footwork. And we just got to make sure that he stays on that and doesn't feel anything on the outside that would even remotely get him off what he's doing, because he's really gotten better. And he's got a lot of pride and wants to be successful and wants his team to be successful. And sometimes you have to realize that what you're doing is just plenty enough, and the rest of it will come. You go ahead, yeah.
How key is it to have Robert just slide in there with James out there?
Well, I won't look at it that way. I think they play together a lot, and they played together since the beginning. And I think Rob is capable of doing what he did tonight. He's capable even more. They've really played well together this year so far. And now, if it would have been a half-court offensive game, and moving him over the other side, one is usually on the right, one's usually on the left. We've added more action where they're together. We didn't get to work on that this week, but and Josh is shooting the ball. Really, the whole thing for our team is sometimes there's set plays for a guy to get a shot. We don't do much of that. It's much more about the fluidity, the movement, the one dribble early, the reversals of the ball, being ready to shoot. Of all the games we've played, now I got to watch the film, but of all the games we've played, including Kansas, okay, and I know it's different level of competition today than it was against Kansas, I thought the ball moved the best today. And Rob was a recipient of that. Now, in answer to your question, well, I really can't answer your question in the sense of stepping in, but like yesterday, Rob was on fire. I heard Colin say, Rob hasn't missed a shot since Friday, right? I asked Rob last night, I said, why are you shooting so well? The ball's moving, right? They answer their own questions. I mean, it's the same thing. It's really not that complex. And we make it more complex than it really is sometimes, right? And just line up and shoot it, move without the ball, get ready to knock it down. And then that's exactly what he did for the most part.
Tom, I guess a two-part. One, the key for preparing for a team like North Carolina, and the other one, the fact you'll be honoring them on TV to win the national championship.
Well, we're underway with Carolina. We haven't spent much time with the team. Well, we haven't really spent any time with the team on that. We talked about it a little bit after the game, but we've got a really good view of how good they are, and we've got the experience of just playing them. It's a different team. We're a different team. But our biggest thing is to make sure our players not only understand how good Carolina is because of what they do, but how good they are because of who's doing it, and make sure that we really understand their personnel at a high level. Wednesday night, when you bring in that team, with Kyle Schwarber coming back to be the honorary captain, the other people that'll be around, but certainly that 81 team, so many of those people being around, that's a huge thing. For many of them, it'll be the first time they've seen the building the way it is now. For many of them, it'll be the first game in some time. Not their only games, but I mean, Randy Whitman certainly hasn't been able to come back very much, right? And so I think that'll be really special. And we always miss the best part. We miss the way the crowd responds to them. Get to watch it on video later. But I would think that 81 team will get the same reverence and respect from these fans that every other championship team that I've seen come back through here has, including 76, including 87, those type of teams, and rightfully so. And I think the most important thing that every fan and person can focus on is that those guys were a team. They've remained bonded. I mean, there's so many friendships out of that group that have stayed intact all these years. And the fact is that they are some of the tradition bearers and ownership stakeholders that have made this program what it is. And what little time we get with them will be well worth it. What little time the public gets with them will be well worth it. But when they're all out there together, that should be the loudest the building is all night.
Thank you.
We're good? Okay. Done this one?
I was just going to ask quickly about Curtis Jones and his comfortability factor.
Sure.
so quickly.
It's a very good question. I think the last couple games he's pressed. You score 15 points in your first college game in an atmosphere like that, in a game like that, you might start thinking, man, it's supposed to happen that way every night. But just like it was that night, he got the shots and a lot of that stuff in the flow of the game. And I think if there's anything he's done the last couple games, he's probably thought it would be easier and, oh, I've got to do this, right? We don't coach in the sense of, hey, we got to have this from these guys. We coach in the sense of that move the ball, defend together, rebound both ends, all right, all those type of things. Let the offense work for you. You're a big part of the offense. Create for others. It comes back to you. And all young players got to go through that. But I thought I was happy to see him knock down shots, not only for us, but for him today, because it proves again the point that when that ball's moving, everybody's going to be a beneficiary of it.